Hi, everyone. Welcome to Office Hours. If you are watching on YouTube and you'd like to find out more about what we do, go to officehours.global. Our first hour is general discussion around media and virtual production. Second hour is usually something we want to spend a little more time on. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about Apple's new Keynote. We don't usually talk about, we talk about Keynote, but we don't talk about it as a second hour, except for the fact that they've added live video to the as an object. And we'll talk about what that actually means and how we might actually use it and what the advantages and disadvantages are. So we'll talk about that in the second hour. Tomorrow, Charles Klein is going to join us and talk about color correcting with LUTs in Resolve, which is not something I've seen a lot of people do, but was something that Charles and I have been playing with, and it's pretty cool. So we'll talk about that tomorrow. And then, of course, Saturday we have education. We don't stream that, so you'll need to be here for that. That's at 8 o'clock. And then at noon, Todd Reynolds will be doing a performance. We're going to take over his space, do the graphics and the audio. I think the audio, and but definitely the switching, and all of that's going to be done remotely. And you'll get to see a behind the scenes of how we actually do that. So stay tuned for that on Saturday. All right, let's jump into the questions, Courtney.
All right, starting things off from Ari Block in Tel Aviv, Israel. The IT department of a planned venue has asked for the MAC addresses of all network equipment to be used in production. What other requests or demands have you come across?
Go ahead, Ari.
Yeah, so this was a new requirement, and of course you can load in all of the backup, all of the production gear, all the backup gear, and I can't think of any other issue other than needing to go and hire something in the last moment. And having the phone number of the IT administrator ready if you need to plug any other MAC address in. But what other strange things might they request?
Yeah, go ahead, David.
In my experience, a lot of times they don't want unmanaged devices attached to their network. They might have limited IP space. And if you come in with a switch and then plug in a whole bunch of things, you could impact their network capability. So that's something to consider.
Yeah, go ahead, Doug.
Yeah, in my experience, I don't trust anybody's network. I build my own. So I don't ever, I've been burned. That's why. So I don't ever use an existing network because you have no idea what they have. And sometimes the IT guys have no idea what's the problem. And you don't want to rely on them to solve your problems. So anytime we do it, we create our own network, but we have to get the internet. That's the only thing we get from them.
Go ahead, Peter.
Well, I was going to go back to one of the things I think it was David said, which was we've also handed out, here is not only you need to tell us your MAC addresses, here is the IP address range you're allowed to use, and we will lock everything else out around that.
Yeah.
Right.
Here you go, Jeffrey.
Wireless microphones, wireless cameras, anything Wi-Fi, and then of course, because some places don't like to have a secondary Wi-Fi in their buildings, and then of course, if you are doing any live streaming, any ports that you need opened up, sometimes you have to fill out a form, and it takes about 3 to 4 weeks in some of these buildings, some of these enterprise locations.
One of the things to look at is anytime you have a request is to try to get better at serving that up quickly. So there's a lot of production is around trust and confidence, in a team. And when a team pays attention to little details like this, anytime someone asks for, if we come back to that venue, we're going to have that immediately. We're going to have it all lined up, and we're going to have it look as nice as it possibly can, be as useful to them as it possibly can. If it needs to be in Excel, we put it in Excel. If they need to see it. I was in a very high profile house in Washington, D.C. And the first question they asked, that we were in this big room, and they said, so do you have any questions? And I said, well, we think that I started it off very purposefully saying, we think we need somewhere between 50 and 60 carpet squares. And we want to know if that's going to come from you or from us. And they said, oh, we'll supply that. But the reason I asked for that was, then I had a whole bunch of things like MAC addresses, access, and when you're organized and have all of those things to line up, what it does is it creates confidence and it creates a relationship with the house. And so you want to think about how you can create that confidence, because that means that they know that business, that they're approaching this with almost everybody that comes into a facility doesn't really respect the facility. They bang the walls and they take advantage of things. They try to work around them. if you work within that system very carefully and you show respect for them, it's a lot of things that can go right for you. So, you want to think about those kinds of requests. But MAC addresses are pretty common in large facilities, or they'll let you plug everything. Some folks will say just plug everything in, and then we'll deliver you the MAC addresses, but that'll be what you have for the rest of the show. So they'll want to do that, and it's usually to a huge advantage if they ask you for that, because it tells you that the IT staff actually knows what they're doing. Like when they start asking for MAC addresses, they're not just letting you DHCP across the system, and that's actually going to be good for you from an internet event production perspective. Anyway, next question.
All right, this one comes in from Sydney, Australia, and Tex Whitney. He says, I'm prepping 15 budget remote kits, and the client is pushing to use AirPod-style mics on panelists' own laptops. I'm trying to convince him to go with a proven wired solution, but does a discrete Bluetooth option actually exist?
Go ahead, Noah.
My understanding with Bluetooth is when you try that two-way communication, the bandwidth doesn't really allow for the highest quality microphone. So I think that's why sometimes the Bluetooth headphones don't necessarily work. I'm sorry, I don't really have a specific solution for you with Bluetooth. I understand wireless, they like that preference of not having wires, but I do want to encourage you that, if you can convince them in a wired solution, that will probably be best, especially for 15 of them.
Yeah, that's a lot of trouble. Wireless could be a lot of trouble for a lot of people. It's. I will say that it's not quite Bluetooth, but the Rode Go solutions are actually a pretty good solution if you're looking for just a wireless. And so even when I'm doing, like, I'll be back to cooking with Damayanti in a week, and I'm going back to a more kind of a higher end setup. And I'm using the Go's, both for my IFB and for my mic, and it's a really nice solution to make that work. So if they just want to get free, that's one way to do it. Go ahead, Stuart.
Yep. Bluetooth, anything under Bluetooth 5 is slow. I've tried Bluetooth on office hours once, and you can see I'm still wearing wired because of it, and that was months ago. Yeah, just avoid it as much as possible. The delay, literally the latency in the communication between your computer and your ears is too much.
Go ahead, Jeffrey.
Yeah, totally agree. Bluetooth 5 is really nice because you have a little bit more range. Like with my headset, I can walk around the house and still keep this connection. The microphone, on the other hand, is not. It's great for something like comms, but when you're doing a broadcast, it's going to be back and forth between the earbuds or not. I would highly recommend that if they want to do that and you want to do the Rode thing, there's also some other companies, and I got a list of a few, that make lower cost versions of what the Rode does, and some of them are 2.4 gigahertz wireless, some of them are UHF. So then that's a big factor if you decide to go that route.
Go ahead, Noah.
You might try to separate those two functions where you have, your microphone and your ears separate. So like using the Go for the mic and then still using AirPods, maybe that's the compromise there. Obviously you could still have dropouts from them hearing, but yeah, just an idea.
Next question.
All right. This one comes in from a young man named Alex L. in Novato. He says, have any of the panelists played with the iPhone 13 yet, all you
Felipe?
boys out there?
Well, I have the Pro Max here. I've done a few tests, more than a few tests already with cinematic mode and ProRes on Filmic Pro. And I made a quick video about it. Would be happy to share if it's allowed on the chat. But
yeah, absolutely, please do.
It's the only thing I would say is for everyone that is thinking about cinematic mode, use it sparingly. Don't put it in maximum f2 and say, "Oh, look how bad it looks. It doesn't look like an f2 lens." Me personally, every time that I'm using it, I'm putting in f10, f11. Because it makes a lot more sense for something like this that's AI driven. Just saying.
Absolutely. Go ahead, Craig.
Yeah, the only thing I'd add is, so I didn't get the max. I just got the standard size. The difference in the macro camera is kind of interesting. I didn't realize I take that many close-up pictures, but one of the things that they do, because they use the fisheye or the wide-angle lens, the angle of the close-up shots shifts because they shift to a different lens. And there's a lot of videos on the internet you can see where as you're going in about 4 or 5 inches away from something, it switches lenses. And the angle of that, because it's a different height, will shift. And so I find if I'm taking a picture of something we cooked and it's a nice plate, it's hard to get the right angle because it flips back and forth. And apparently in the next OS patch, they'll have a toggle so you can turn that off.
Yeah. Oops, I hit the wrong button. This is a key on my keyboard with the macro lens, which I just think is kind of insane.
Which key is that?
Which key? Yeah. But it is the macro thing is kind of a game changer for me because I have a case that I was putting on my phones that did macro. Like there's a case that you can get, might have it laying around, that I put on the phone that had little macro lenses on it that didn't look as good as this, but still, were pretty good. And so it's a pretty nifty solution. We have in the code, we've gone back and forth. There is HLG available. It's not in the photo version or the Apple photo, but it is available in the API. So we would expect to see that in something like Filmic in the not too distant future. And so you'll be able to capture Apple ProRes HQ in HLG, which is better than 709 in my opinion. So it truly is. There are projects that I could now shoot on my phone. Like that's the thing that's the change for it is I could actually go and like, especially if I was doing a documentary in a remote location and I wanted to go low profile and I wanted to do some interviews or whatever, I could totally do them on this phone, and that's the crazy thing that has happened. I think it's funny. A lot of people talked about it as an incremental upgrade, but the updates to the camera and the updates to Apple ProRes is a game changer. Because if you just go out and take a wide shot of trees, people have talked about it a little. I'm going to shoot it because I shot when I was testing HDR. I shot wide shots of the kind of the hills below my house, and I immediately realized it was useless. This is with the last version because it just looked like little swirlies, in the compression. And I haven't had time in the last couple of days. Been a little busy. I haven't had time to go out and do it, but I'm going to shoot a before and after so you can see what it looks like. But moving trees is a good example of something that will look way better in Apple ProRes than it will in H.265. Next question. Oh, Craig. Sorry, Craig. Did you already did? Okay. Next question.
Okay, coming in from our panelist, Noah Sargent in Fullerton, California. A short question, but a long answer probably. Yeah. What is the favorite day of your career?
Felipe?
Well, I have many moments in my career that it made me extremely happy, but the most recent one was when the show I worked on was nominated for an Emmy, and it was for Outstanding Editing. And of course, there are the editors and there's the whole post-production team, the whole editing team, including the assistant editors. We are not nominated for that, but definitely felt quite proud for being part of that team. And that was it for me lately.
Yeah, go ahead, David.
The day I discovered office hours.
Oh, that's great. Hasmukh?
Yeah, medical school finally paid me today, so it could be my...
Yeah, we lost you there. You go ahead. What did you say? You said
I've obviously had many careers, and this is a medical one. After my internship, I did 2 years in a more non-academic hospital in the Eastern Cape, where you did a lot of procedures. Came back to Grooteskuur, this big, snotty academic hospital, very, very regimented and very hierarchical. And my first patient that was wheeled into ER was completely blue, and the staff was saying, well, we have to take him to an X-ray, and we have to do this, and we have to do that. I just asked for a pneumothorax pack, which was a little plunger, and I plunged it into his chest, released all the air, and he was perfect, and everybody turned around. We never allow a junior doctor to plunge that in anybody's chest. Where the heck did you learn that? And I was extremely chuffed that day. I'll never ever forget that, because I had a sudden rush of great respect for this guy who came from a very non-academic hospital. So that still remains my favorite day.
Go ahead, Sky.
Oh, sure. I'm supposed to follow Hasmukh saving someone's life. Thanks, Hasmukh. No, that's awesome. So that might be one of my favorite moments right there. Favorite moment. I've had the opportunity of working with people that are way out of what I thought was my league, but I got to walk into an edit suite in Detroit and work with Aretha Franklin. I got to work on the presidential elections in 08. I've had the opportunity of
just one. You got to pick one day.
Just one day.
Yeah,
okay.
If we all start listing this thing will last the whole thing. This will last all day. So you got to pick one day. I got to do the very first HD with ESPN, and one of the series was with a story about Mia Hamm, the soccer player. That was an amazing event. It was several days. Go ahead, Peter.
Mine is a bit of a dark side, but Nigel will probably be the best one to appreciate this. This was back in, we were bringing up, I'll say, serial number -10 of a mainframe back in the late 80s. And we learned the hard way, the term smoke test is not just an observation, it is a real thing. And it was about $30 million of prototype hardware that literally was unusable in 30 seconds.
Oh, Mitchell.
One time, the local advertising club decided that maybe they should give me a shot to do a parody, or to do a opening for the award ceremony, and I did a parody of a major motion picture where we overdubbed the voices and sound. And I know with comedy it's always very chancy, but we did it well. It showed in a very large venue here in Wilmington, and the people just absolutely fell out. I didn't think it was that funny, but it was funny, and it was well received, and I was a big warm glow, because your peers are basically saying, okay, you did it, you accomplished it. So for me, that was it.
Guy?
I'd have to say it was when we rallied the team to hit a certain number to get medical, because we're a small company, and as you know, medical can be super expensive. So we threw up a number and a thermometer, paper thermometer, up in the lunchroom, and everybody watched as this number came closer upon the horizon. And it was just this overwhelming sense of team. And when we hit that number, just the joy of everybody knowing that, you know, we pushed hard and we hit that number. And so it was a sense of excitement, and just you could feel the team really rallying. So that was my favorite day.
Jeffrey?
I'm waiting for my day on medical, but 14 years ago, actually this month, 14 years ago, I started geekazine.com, and I've had I had many different interviews and places to go and everything like that. But the one day that I think the most of was the day that I actually paid off my student loans, because I wouldn't have been able to do that working in a cubicle, and it would have been just horrible. So that's one day that I keep close to me.
Ari?
I was thinking of this moment, that moment, and then what really made me smile was, and I remembered while still in high school, at the end of high school, I wrote up a proposal and sold some microprocessor, Motorola 6800 microprocessor based educational kits to my high school, and that launched my career as an entrepreneur, and that was my first transaction. So that was a good day.
Nigel?
I'd been working for about a year on a corporate rebranding, and I had faced nothing but cynicism from some of my colleagues who didn't believe any of it. And we finally rolled it out publicly, and it got such warm response from the press and the media and the analysts that even the people inside who were against it went, okay, I get it.
That's great. Courtney?
I've had many careers and many favorite days, but one of them was the being handed that little gold statue right there from Jerry Lewis. It was very big in France. I'm sure they all watched it.
David?
For me, I'm going to get philosophical. It's each day you wake up and you have the ability to do what you do.
Yeah, very much. Now, for me, I think I was in Zimbabwe in 2000. Was there during the elections, and after the elections had just passed, we went to Mishfingo, Zimbabwe, which is a little south of. It's about a couple hours, 3 or 4 hours south. And on the way back, we went to Great Zimbabwe, and then on the way back, we stopped at a Mbira player's house, Simon Mashoko, and he's in his 80s, and we got there, and as we drove up, there was a church, and they were singing hymns that I could recognize from the hymn, but in Shona, with Mbira, it was crazy. Like it was just this, you could just feel it coming you just feel this energy coming out of the church. And then we got up there, and they got excited that we were there. And one of his daughters walked by with a log, like literally like 8-foot log on her head. She's like, hello. She stopped to shake all of our hands as she walked by, like it was no big deal. And he started playing, and they were dancing and playing, and the kids were running around. The kids had never, I don't think, ever seen a screen. So they were just incredibly excited about it, about the cameras and everything else. And it was just, I just felt very connected. And I think that's what connected me it was 3 days into my first trip out of the country. Like, it was when I got my passport, and I'm now in southern Zimbabwe and having this incredible experience, and definitely is what tied me to, I had studied Africa for 15 years, but it was what kind of tied me to it, just like, this is amazing. It was no longer an academic experiment. It was something that was much more spiritual for me at that point. Next question.
Coming in from Simon Ray in Shrewsbury, United Kingdom. He says, John Pretto made some projection-mapped singing pumpkins for Halloween. Would he mind briefly describing how he did this and any hardware or software involved?
Go ahead, John.
Simon, thank you for asking. I wish I could say I did the 3D modeling, projection mapping, and the motion capture for this, but this is Atmos effects. And so I'm using Raspberry Pi 400s because they have built-in keyboard, and it's easy for me to create the script that runs these in case there's a power, so it automatically plays when you reboot the Raspberry Pi, and so this is one projector that shoots the image on the singing pumpkins, and this is the hit of the show. I've had over 200 trick-or-treaters come to my house to look at all this crazy stuff. And then my local pub owner found out about it, and so I'm installing these in his pub now. Doug's going to help me install these this weekend. Right, Doug?
No,
anything for you.
And that's a projection that's in there?
Yeah, so inside the house, there's you buy a curtain for Bed Bath & Beyond, the curtain liner. That's put up in the window, and then it's rear projected with the ghost. That's front projected. So the tombstone hides the projector. So behind that tombstone is the projector and the PA. And then that just shoots on 3 real pumpkins. And then I think actually cooler on this other side is the zombies. So the zombies are really cool. There's my son, the zombie. But the zombies, the same thing. That's plastic with the rear projection, and then they make groaning noises.
You've taken this to a whole different level.
And then
is it already running? Is this from? Is it already?
This is 2019, and then this one's another big hit, which are spiders that come out of the hole. The kids love this one. So the kids go jumping around on top of the spiders. So there's 4 different scenes, 4 different projectors. Atmos effects. I'll put the link in Mukana. But setting it all up is fun. It's all Raspberry Pis, driving OMX player. Now I switched to VLC so I can do playlists and loop them. Because the Singing Pumpkins have 3 different songs. They licensed the Addams Family and 3 other hit songs, Ghostbusters, and then they tell 3 different stories. The Headless Horseman and some other cool stuff. So fun project and super easy to pull off.
What I want to do, of course, seeing that is, you could do a face tracker with your phone with a mic, and you could have the pumpkins talk to people.
Right. Yeah, that would be cool.
Anyway, okay. I'm inspired. All right. We'll think about that stuff. All right. Next question.
Coming in from Jeffrey Powers in Madison, Wisconsin. Is there hardware that converts the RS-232 port on a PTZ camera to USB or Ethernet to be controlled via software?
Go ahead, Guy.
Yeah, in the past we've used something called Rockosoft, and so it looks like this, and it's about $169. RS-232 to USB. It's a little balun that you can plug in. Depending on the camera that you have, it may or not be worth it, because some of them you can buy other camera. Use that $169 to buy something more modern. There are some great stuff out there now for pretty cheap, as you know, Jeffrey. So hopefully that helps, but you might be able to find one used. In fact, I know I have one collecting dust in the bottom of a cable barrel. I'll go look and see if I can find it and make you a good deal.
Yeah, let's talk.
Does that do RS-232 on both ends, or is it just USB to RS-232?
RS-232 to USB. Yeah, so RS-232 into the camera and USB into the computer.
Got it, Courtney.
Yeah, I don't know if it would work in this situation. We use a lot of RS-232 to USB converters. FTDI makes some. They're only about $30 or so, and they're just a single dongle that goes from USB to 9-pin RS-232.
One of the things I love about office hours is the fact that we have all these incredible questions of things that are just completely like these little patterns. And what goes into my head is that I don't know when I'll need that, but I know I'll need it. And then the fact that I know that somebody knows what it is, and I'll kind of remember, oh, there's something there, is part of the power of just listening to it all every day. Anyway, next question.
Oh, and don't get the ones with the prolific chipset, because they were counterfeited and the drivers don't work half the time.
Ouch.
Okay, next one coming from Salak Miguel Lopez Waterman in New York. He says, how do you use the wireshark to see packets on a network that are not targeted to the computer wireshark is on?
Go ahead, David.
The wireshark computer just needs to bridge that. So you need to put it on the network you're monitoring. And if you need to monitor that computer remotely, you'll need a second network interface or body in front of the computer doing it. Yeah,
it's useful. It's very useful. Next question.
From Noah Sargent in Fullerton, California. Where do you post your old used gear for sale?
Go ahead, Sky.
Well, once upon a time, eBay was the garage sale of source. Craigslist is another. I've been looking for some of my post-production emails, but I can't find your name on Discord. So we'll continue to chat. I've got some stuff I'd love to get rid of too.
Go ahead, Stuart.
Sale? What is this word sale? I know about buying, I know about collecting, but what is this word sale? We have lenses. We don't give them away.
I have a bad habit of not selling things when I should. So I'm going through my garage right now, and there'll probably be a big sale because I have to get rid of a lot of things. But I'm not very good at it. For bigger stuff we've done on eBay. The problem with eBay is to me, there's so many clicky things that I had to do and figure out that I just was like, oh, I'll get around to it at some point. Anyway, go ahead, Guy.
It gets a little challenging, but we've done quite a bit of business on eBay. I mean, you can see here we got 21,000 feedback, but we found a system and software that we can use to post all this stuff up pretty quick. So it's all about how the resource of how you have. We use a program called NetSuite to put this stuff up here and put it in several marketplaces at the same time. So eBay is still a thing.
Yeah,
works well.
Seamless plug of the day award goes to Guy.
Woo, woo.
Next question.
Coming in from Noah Sargent here on the panel in Fullerton, California. When hiring a team to support your business, who do you hire first?
Stuart.
I normally look for somebody who I can have a reasonably good relationship with. Give you an example. I shot a short film a while ago that it needed an actress to play a Lara Croft style character. Put an advert up, got 20 replies. We chose the person who we could sit down and have a laugh with, not the person who matched the character the most. So we looked for a relationship where we could communicate, where we knew that once they were on set, they were invested in the role as much as we were. So again, that transfers to hiring people to support you for technology, whether it's a first AC or it's somebody providing a stream. Somebody you have a good relationship with, you can work things out with, even if you've got to pay more or if you've got to pay less.
Go ahead, Nigel.
Yeah, that's a great way of choosing the person. I always encourage people, before you hire anybody, sit down and do a piece of work and say, What are the blocks of work that needs doing? Then find the right person for that block of work. There's a lot of people who want to get people around them who they like and love, and that's great. And if they're multi-talented, that's even better. But don't run out of budget before you've covered all the things you're going to have to do to finish the project.
Yeah, I think at this point I hire people first that I've worked with in the past. So and we hire them for teams for a given project, but people I've worked with in the past. Then I hire people that, there's certain people that I'll ask, like, I need this kind of person. Who do you recommend? If I hire a lead camera operator for an event, I'll usually ask them to hire the rest of the camera operators. Like I need a list of who you want to work with because cohesive teams are really useful. So I try to, instead of mixing and matching a bunch of people that don't know each other, I'd rather have a folks who have worked with each other. And it also means that camera operator takes it really seriously because it reflects on them, if their team isn't so they'll crack the whip a lot faster than I will to pull things in, and we do that in a couple different places. From there, people recently in the last year and a half, it's been people who work on some of the test projects, people that are part of the training stuff that we do here in office hours, panelists who are in office hours that I feel like I get to know, get them a little job and then see how that sorts out. And then they become someone that I've worked with. But I think that we're probably, for our given events, we're probably 60 to 80% of the folks that we're bringing in had just the right skill set and availability to do something with us. From 60, 80% of them are somewhere from office hours. Now, some of them I've known in the past, but a lot of them have come through there. So then they're people that that I feel comfortable with from this group, and I think that they have the right skill set for what I'm looking for at the right time. Next question, or go ahead, Guy.
Yeah, I'd say I took the question as who do you hire for? Who's your first hire? And so for me, it was somebody to help with the accounting because I would come in on the weekend and that was like my kryptonite. I mean, I hate having to sit there and tediously do numbers when I want to be a creative. So know what kind of brain you have, if you're left brain or right brain. And if you're a creative, you probably don't want to sit there doing the repetitive stuff, or there's other people that love that. So you're actually giving them an opportunity to shine and do what they love. So either an office manager, somebody to unload some of the duties that you don't enjoy doing so you can do what you do like and what brings in the revenue.
You do want to get to a point where you always want to, I always try to hire people that know more about whatever they're doing than me. I think when I started, I didn't do that. I tried to just hire people that I could guide and everything else. But now I want them to know more than I do about whatever that subject is that I'm hiring them for, because that extends it. And it also means that I'm not tempted to take over their job because I can't. So next question.
Oh, was that next question? All right, sorry. Coming in from Simon Ray in Shrewsbury, the UK. Can the panel recommend a small self-powered device to replace the audio on an HDMI line? This is to use a better quality audio source on a feed from a remote camera that doesn't have a line in or a mic socket.
I would use an embedder, de-embedder with a battery, with a DTAP. I think that's what you... that's how I would approach that. I don't know if there's anything that does it on its own for embedding. Oh, I guess, I don't know what the modern one is for this. Like the Pix 240 did it. I mean, that's what we used for that. It had a battery on it, and you could have HDMI and go in, HDMI go out. You could have, you could put, analog or even AES, into the Pix and map that. You could remap the channels. So it was the Pix 240 did that really well, but at this point, I'd probably, there you go. It is. I have one right here. Such a great machine. Anyway, but I can't think of other ones that are just standalone. Go ahead, Stuart.
Same route as the Pix, but the ATEM Shogun also has an analog in and out and HDMI in and out, and it will take the analog audio and mix it in to the HDMI or SDI out.
And when you say analog in, is it balanced input?
Yeah, XLR.
Okay.
XLR.
Great.
So, but I will point out on mine, the red and black labels are reversed on input and outputs for which is right channel and which is left channel. The quality control was not the best.
Go ahead, Noah.
Yeah, I had to read this question a few times. I think what I'm getting is there's a camera that you're trying to send audio through an HDMI, and it's not the highest quality. So the HDMI isn't necessarily the problem because that's just transferring the signal. But to your point, having a microphone or something as a secondary source might be a better solution. So a self-powered audio device, you could have a lav microphone or a wired microphone. But yeah, you want to get the signal from a microphone instead of from the camera. There might be a built-in microphone within that camera, but to have the highest quality audio, you want the microphone as close as you can to the source.
Go ahead, Stuart.
Yeah, I forgot one, and it's the one that I want to try with an ATEM mini mixer, and that's the Tascam DR701D recorder. It's the little recorder that sits under the camera. It has a HDMI in, and it then has a HDMI loop through, so you can take the channels from the Tascam recorder and put them in the HDMI output. It's meant for you to be able to loop through between multiple ones of these Tascam recorders, but obviously, once it's in the HDMI, it can be used by anything.
Next question.
Okay, coming in from Bethany in Mexico. How was the production of Conversations with Tony Mobley? Seemed like there were some issues when watching the BTS in Zoom behind the scenes.
Go ahead, Guy.
Good thing we do this stuff for free, right? It's a learning experience. I didn't get to see too much of the behind the scenes. I kind of glanced over. I did have it logged in on this other machine, so there was some share screen crackliness with the audio. I think there's a 44:1 to 48 conversion going on Aaron's machine. I thought overall, because I was a panelist on there, from that end, it was pretty smooth. There was one glitch at the beginning where the return. So one of the nice things this time is, instead of pushing the load with Video Ninja of all the panelist feeds back to you, where you're having to take in all those feeds, we made just one return, which was actually the panel plus a small window of what the show build was looking like. So you could see if you're in a 2-up box or what you're in. There was a couple bad cuts. I saw, at one point I glanced down and saw two Tonys in the 2-up. So again, learning experience, safe place to fail. We had a great guest. We had Jeff Woodgren from the Zoom Test Kitchen and a couple of guys here from Office Hours, and everybody was super gracious. And it was a great show. I really enjoy seeing Tony get better and better. In fact, by the end, Aaron was kind of passing the hat around saying, hey, let's get Tony a teleprompter, because it's just getting better and better. And this is whatever, episode 9, 10, he's getting up there. And so I think it's going to be a thing, and we want to support him because he's doing a great job and teaching us. I mean, he thinks that we're just helping him, but he's actually helping us, because some of the little tidbits and these failures are what makes us grow. And so I'm happy to do it, and it's a safe place again to fail and blow stuff up. So I like blowing stuff up.
It's such a value to have real content. You just can't figure out what's working and not working without it. Go ahead, Jeffrey.
Yeah, there was only one other issue, and that was with Aaron's machine that was pushing it through into after hours froze or something like that. So for about 3-4 minutes, we were yelling at Aaron, "Hey, look over here, start it back up."
Right.
Other than that, yeah, it worked. It was great. You guys are doing a great job there.
Next question.
Coming in from Ari Block in Tel Aviv, Israel. Recommendations for specific brands or models of HDMI over fiber cables. Which ones to stay away from?
Go ahead, Ari.
Yeah, I remember this was discussed in the past. I just can't recall the models, but I will add on to the question, what would be the pros and cons of using a fiber run? Case being an auditorium, a 200-seater or so, that would be about 80 feet, versus, let's say, a Mars 400 as the link.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead, Leo.
So I'll answer on the second point, which is HDMI over fiber. My preference has always been to use SDI because of the concern that fiber is, once broken, it's thrown away. I've had a lot of success with SDI over very long runs, putting it in, taking it out, leaving it in all the time. I've had limited success. In fact, I've had a lot of failures with HDMI over fiber, with different issues with the cables getting crushed, and also with just things that are supposed to work not working. And it's just the reliability. The cable itself with SDI is rock solid in 99% of the time, and you can replace the ends if you ever need to. And as you upgrade, the bit that you want to change is the converters, and those converters you can buy newer, faster ones as you need them.
Good guy.
Yeah, the one that I bought is the Rua Pro. This comes in different lengths. The one I got was about 100 feet. You can see here the 4K fiber 30 meter, and this one does transfer the protocol over, so you can use your Blackmagic cinema camera with the camera control over the ATEM Mini. So this one works, and it's called a Rua Pro. I'll put the link in the chat.
I haven't done it recently, but within Pixel Core, we did a lot of these runs, and we converted to fiber all the time. Like that's just what we did because we just didn't want to think about the. Now we were using TAC12. You lose a strand, you just move it over. That's kind of what we, so that we never did anything less than TAC12. For runs. I mean, we had some TAC4s that we gave up on pretty quickly just because we always needed more than that. The nice thing about fiber is you can get into a situation where you can put things on different wavelengths. You can put 8 cameras on the same strand if you need to. The ones that we've used for the most part are yellow bricks. They're not the cheapest solution, but the yellow bricks are in my opinion, the highest quality and the easiest to pack into a high density. But of course, Blackmagic makes some rack mountable versions as well as regular versions, and we've used other things that for SDI we mostly use stuff like copperheads and rattlers. Anyway, because they're nice and small and easy to run. Next question.
Coming in from Tommy Schatz in St. Paul, Minnesota. Are there any tilt trim units that people have been happy with and won't break the bank? I'm
not sure what tilt trim. You might have to ask that question again because since we don't have anyone raising their hand, I think we're all a little confused by what that's referring to.
Tripod heads?
I don't know, Tommy. If you can ask that question again, either today or another day. I don't know what a tilt trim unit is. From that nomenclature. Next question.
Coming in from Noah Sargent in Fullerton. Has anyone followed the IATSE possible strike?
Sky.
Yes, I will be very careful. Unions are a way of organizing a workforce. I've been a part of NABIT in the past, and letting somebody else negotiate your rates was a tremendous gift because both the management and myself had a book that already had been negotiated. So the writer's strike, how it'll affect today's content creation, that's going to be interesting.
Go ahead, Courtney.
Following it, but can't say much about it. They did receive over a 94% approval of the rank and file for granting, the right to strike to the leadership, and it did get the producers back to the table. They are negotiating today, so hopefully they will settle their differences and we will come out with a better contract.
This strike had to happen, because of the changes in the way the business model is working. So everyone, I don't know what's going to happen with what actually happens from it. But all of the different unions are going to need to figure out where they fit into the new puzzle, because the idea of getting a back end is probably not going to happen again. So they have to figure out what that actually means and how to deal with that.
Now, I might point out there isn't a strike. It's a strike authorization vote.
No, there's no strike yet. I mean, but it probably will need to lead to a strike, in my opinion. I don't think they're going to negotiate their way out of it because it's such a big deal for everybody. But we'll see. Next question.
All righty. Coming in from Jeffrey Powers in Madison, Wisconsin. Watching film studio car scenes in TV or movies nowadays, I see frame rate issues in the background video. What could cause this and how can it be fixed?
Go ahead, Stuart.
Without being too blunt, it's basically people being slack at what they're doing. The main causes on the technical side are using a different frame rate for the background footage as to what you're filming, or not gen-locking a rear projector image to make sure that the projector and the camera are running at the same. But it boils down to people not doing their job properly.
Go ahead, Noah.
Yeah, there's definitely a few different techniques where they can put the car on a sled or a Rhino and they basically pull it through, right? Or they do rear projection, like Stuart just said. And so basically along the way somewhere in there, one of those techniques kind of failed. Or if you kind of reverse the clock, 20, 30 years, the technology of an older show may not translate well to HD or Ultra HD.
And a lot of times they retime them. They try to retime the background to do something that's slightly different, and it doesn't work. That's probably one of the top reasons we've seen that happen. Next question.
Coming in from Tommy Schatz in St. Paul, Minnesota, are there means to control consumer pan tilt zoom cameras with a Raspberry Pi via Ethernet?
Go ahead, Stuart.
I haven't tried this myself, but I know on the Decaffeine website, which is NDI and the like for the Pi, there is information there about controlling PTZ cameras over it. But like I said, I have not tried this myself yet. I just know the information.
Next question. Oh, can't hear you, Courtney.
Yep, sorry. I clicked and it didn't go. Coming in from Chris Widener in Lafayette, Indiana. When projecting mapping on manikins, is there any trick or tip for getting a really tight map for the mouth? The museum project I'm working on, the mouth is driving me crazy.
Yeah, go ahead, Courtney.
Well, the method they used when they did all the Disney stuff for the projection, and that was with 16 millimeter film, is they built a rig to hold the actor's head perfectly still and in position so it couldn't move. And that's one of the keys. Otherwise, you have to track it. These days, we can track it a little better and stabilize it. But having the head be perfectly static when you record the original will help considerably.
Yeah, I don't know if you're talking about an animated mouth or an actual physical mouth. So that would be, part of the puzzle there, as far as figuring out what that actually looks like. The main thing is being straight on, and then I don't know if the mannequin's moving as well. That's the other piece of that puzzle. Next question.
From Josh Kaufman in Pittsburgh, PA. Panelist thoughts on the potential of the Zoom events platform, opportunities, possible limitations, etc.
Go ahead, Guy.
Yeah, I think that this is like a hop-in type shot over the bow to say, hey, we're here. And so registration and payments was always one of the things that was difficult to handle. Like the big Tony Robbins events that are like $800. You don't want more than one person using that account. So, and then for the bigger events, like where you would want to use a conference, so there's Summit and there's Conference. Summit is just a single day event. But Conference, you can actually do multi-day, and then at the same time, you can have simultaneous speakers going on. So if it was a web event, you can have, several different apps being discussed, and you can go to the one that you would like to go to, and then they're recorded, and so it's a repository for later going back, and all that stuff's still there if you choose to make it that way. And Josh, if you want to beta test it, or not beta test it because it's out, I do have an account with a license for the next 15 days that I did their free trial. So if you want to try it, I'm more than happy, or anybody else, ping me in Discord and I will put you on and you can play and report back to us, because I'm curious to learn. I just haven't had time to dive in there and really, spend the hours, because it's going to take a long time to learn this stuff.
I think that probably while you have this, maybe even next week, we should think about doing a second hour or maybe a lab where we all jump into something, like a bunch of us jump into one. We all, because I think it's hard to test when you don't have a bunch of people. So maybe we'll do it like in an after hours or we'll figure it out. Let's think about the schedule we can do there so that we could get 50 or 60 people to jump into something, because I think that would help us test it a lot more to see what the behaviors are. It's worth tracking. Go ahead, Ari.
Yeah, I think that the Zoom Events platform is interesting. Whether it's a Me Too platform or not, I don't know. But the conference format, which I believe is yet to be released, is a changer for the multi-day, multi-track events. That will be very interesting. And yes, I think we should play around with it in a second hour or otherwise.
Yeah. David?
There's something to be said when we think about the audience that we're trying to reach, about using a platform that they're familiar with and that they're comfortable with. And so while some of these other platforms may be more robust, there might be something to really sticking in Zoom, which is what most people are used to.
John?
Here's my adjective, ugh. We've been on the phone with Zoom for conference and events for the last 6 months. Conferences in beta, it requires a custom build still. And so they're on the right pathway. It's just not baked yet.
Yeah, the thing is, what I'd like to see them do is I'd like to see them spend all that energy on the API, because the API is a little bit of a jungle, and let people continue to customize it the way that they want to customize it. If you look at, for instance, what Obvio does with what Grant's working on and Blue working on together, I'd rather allow that creativity to happen and let individuals create solutions for them, as opposed to Zoom trying to do it. Because of what I've seen so far, I don't find it that compelling. I feel like they're kind of sticking with it, but I think that empowering event designers to do this more powerfully, giving them better tools, giving them better support, giving them better SDKs would go a long way into letting that they can make their money doing that and become part of that back end. I don't know if they have to be the front end to it. I also think that within 5 years, if not 10 years, we'll be going to regular events and not conferences. Conferences are going to fade away because like it's not that they won't happen. They just won't be as big of a deal as we have now. I mean, people are going to realize that a constant contact of every week or every day or every month is way more powerful than some crazy thing that you do once a year. It's cuckoo. So next question.
Okay, coming in from Josh Kaufman in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I've recently acquired a projector with a LAN port, Panasonic PT EW640. What can I do with this LAN port?
Stuart.
I'm going to answer this question in 3 parts. 2 of them are functions and 1 of them is a rant. The first is older projectors used to use an Ethernet port to allow remote control of things like brightness and contrast and the like. Newer projectors, and this is the second part of the response, is they would allow you to stream footage to the memory inside the projector and it would play from there, same as a TV. The rant part of this is one of the reasons I got a reputation for knowing what I was doing was because before turning up on set, I would apply a principle called RTFM, read the manual. And on that note, I'm putting a link in the chat in Mukana to the Panasonic support site where you can find the manual to that projector, and it'll probably do more than
I don't know. I mean, manuals are kind of like useless, So I will say that the people can talk about this, but the thing is the reason the question's asked is because it makes way more sense when we can talk about what we did from it. Because the people who write the manuals barely understand how the product works. I mean, if you open up most of these manuals, that you're like, and it's like the on button turns it on. You're like, okay, I need to know, or there's so many places where manuals are completely useless. I mean, the reason people call is because we all know that the manual is, I can't say the word. So that is 90% of manuals created are useless, other than, and so the thing is that, but the reason people call and they don't read the manual is because they're written so badly, they are, and this is my rant for a second, is that the easiest way to increase the value of your product without engineering, without marketing, without anything else is the manual, making a great manual, making great learning materials. You look at what's working really well for Blackmagic is all that training that they're doing, and the people that they're seeding with it and the people that they're pushing down the path and everything else. But it's not the manual. The manual's okay, but it's not. But the thing is that but the documentation of products it is literally this black hole that no one gets. That and so I'll push back a little bit that it's good for people to ask the questions here because we can answer them. We can save them a lot of time of reading a fairly bad manual written by someone where English is their second language, especially if it's coming from Panasonic. Panasonic and Sony are notorious for bad English, in their manuals. And so anyway, I want people to use I just don't want us to push back on people and tell them to go read the manual. The reason we're here is so we can answer their questions, because the manuals stink. Anyway, go ahead, David. Can't hear you, David.
Sometimes those Panasonic projectors will have that local web server that augment what you can do via the remote. So you can browse in, set the thing up to auto go on, auto timeout. I did that once and it shut down the event that ran a little long.
I have found that the Ethernet to projectors in general is something I'm scared of because I've put it into states that because it's like the engineering connection, and it sometimes will put the projector into a state that it's hard to get back out of. Go ahead, Peter.
Well, 2 things. One is I absolutely agree with you. I've done that myself with a projector where it bricked it essentially because we couldn't figure out how to undo it. But the other one is just back to your comment about well-written manuals. I mean, I will remember a time when, quite bluntly, you shamed me into getting a Mixpre. way back when. I got one from Guy. I then got with Mickey at one evening and sat down and he did it. And we realized, oh, this is a Mixpre 3M.
Right.
And he and I both looked at the manual and we closed up the manual and just started to play with it because we could not, he couldn't interpret the manual. And I figured if he couldn't interpret the manual, I had no hope of interpreting the manual. There's a way to do this. I mean, so the way we write documentation is that you have the person who the system expert shows it to someone who is technical, but doesn't know anything about that product. And they ask the questions and they talk through it. Then that person writes it and then they show it to a person who also doesn't know it. And then they say, I don't understand this, and this. And then we go back to the expert and then we pull it back in. And there's a process to do that most people skip. They have the expert write it, or they have someone who doesn't know anything about write it, not really, but it's the cross check of that makes good documentation, in my opinion. I think it's a huge missing opportunity. I mean, I think there's a media explosion here that could be done if people started actually creating something useful. Go ahead, Courtney.
It's page 107 in the manual, and it's about 12 pages long, the network settings for that particular render.
Okay, let's jump to the next question. We just beat that one into the ground. Next question.
Sorry, I thought I unmuted. Coming from Douglas Carmichael. Hasmukh, what attracted you to the early era of the IT industry and bringing it into the African market?
How long do we have?
You got about a minute.
I think after 12 years in medicine, I kind of realized I've been a frustrated engineer all my life. So I've always been attracted to technology, but my life has been woven in the South African tapestry, so you're involved in trying to make things better. That's been in our DNA. And I recognize that technology has a significant role and impact to play. So I really combined the DNA of needing to serve with hooking up with technology and finding how those two could converge in creating scalable impact. So really, it's all about scalable impact. And I got into IT industry for causes rather than business, which is sometimes the best way to stumble into a new career.
Next question. We'll go a little bit over, but we'll just jump into it. Go ahead. Next question.
Okay, coming from Eddie Martinez in Palo Cedro. When relying on venue internet, do you have any suggestions for language regarding force majeure, outages, or other failures beyond your control in your agreements?
We always recommend multiple primary backup and usually stacks of those primary backups in when we're talking about it, and then in writing we tell people what the risks are if we don't have those. If you have 4 ways out, you will always. Not always, but you have other problems. If you have 4 different ways out of a venue and something and you don't have a connectivity, then something is very wrong. But I think that those are. I don't have a lot of language for it, but what I will say is that we have backups to the backups to the backups, and if the client takes those backups away, they get emails that this is what could happen if. And then if something happens, we refer back to the email that we sent. CYA emails are super important in a corporate environment. Just in case you're wondering, if you think that there's something that could go wrong, you tell them ahead of time that this could be the output of the outcome of what the decisions we're making. Next question.
Coming in from Auckland, New Zealand, and Peter Moore. He says, since I've been in the office hours community for quite a while now, and quite often watch the YouTube live stream instead of Zoom, I keep getting this YouTube recommended video from Alex's channel from 10 years ago called Tom's Margarita Maker. Should I watch it?
Yes, you should. We were having a picnic in my backyard, and Tom Anderson was he brought over it's a margarita maker with a disposal. It's a igloo with a disposal at the bottom. It makes a lot of margaritas really fast. And I had just gotten this 5D that was the first camera that had video, and literally that was the first video I shot with the 5D. I like literally just opened it up and hit record, and you'll see it because like the shutter speed is way off and everything else. I didn't know how to use it. I just hit it. Anyway, just handheld, me just sitting there having Tom. It was just, we just sat, I had to test the camera. Anyway, so and Tom's a brilliant chip designer. So it's funny to have someone like that showing you how to make margaritas. Anyway, next question.
Coming in from our own Hasmukh Geiger in Cape Town, hosted Zoom meeting with attendees and a conversation host with Mixpre, not active participant, recorded the meeting on ATEM Extreme ISO, did not bring the audio into the ATEM, so no audio ISO recording. What's the best way to bring the audio from Mixpre into the ATEM?
I think it's the headphone jack out. I mean, it's the 1/8 inch out into the. I think that's the only way in to that. Other than bringing it into, if you're going to bring it in, you have to bring it through those little jacks. I mean, that's part of it's a limitation of both of those systems. Go ahead, Noah. We're going to go pretty quick through this one. Go ahead.
Yeah, you should be able to do a line out into the ATEM 1/8 inch, but I would try to bypass that if you can. I mean, line level is pretty decent though.
Yeah, go ahead, Peter.
I was going to say, same. Matter of fact, that's how I'm using it right now. I'm using a short jumper from the line out on the Mixpre into the ATEM 1/8 inch jack, but the ATEM jack is set to line mode.
Yeah, and we want to underline a short jump. Very, very. That's the thing is, it's unbalanced.
6 inches. It's a 6 inch cable.
Yeah, it's a short jump, no power around it, and you should be okay. Next question.
Coming in from Nathan GS in Singapore, how well does Zoom handle multiple sessions on the same network? How many sessions could you theoretically run on a 500 megabits per second up-down internet connection?
Go ahead, Ari.
I can't speak to the 500 Mbps because I have a 1 gig line, but I'll just say that I run 4 to 5 concurrent sessions, streaming on top of that, and on top of that, 2 heavily gaming teenagers, and no problem. So yeah. I don't think it would be an issue.
Good, Peter.
The line itself won't be the problem. Now, your switching equipment in your where you're at could be causing a problem, because I have an older switch that I managed to saturate, and this replaced the switch and no longer had a problem.
Yeah. As long as you got at least a 1 gig switch, you should be okay. It is we calculate 10 megs per connection. Is our rule of thumb.
And be careful, because 1 gig switches are not all alike either.
Right.
It depends how the chipsets are set up inside the switch, how many ports per chipset they're handling.
And also, you want to go in, if you're really going to start using a switch, make sure to go and turn off all the eco modes. They are the devil. Next question.
And a last one for this hour says, from Craig McFarlane in Boston, says, have you considered other layouts for office hours than speaker or gallery views? For example, 2 side-by-side layout to support a more natural conversation versus cutting back and forth.
Yeah, that's what's going to happen in Office Hours 2.0. So you'll see the gallery view very little. It'll be a mixture of super sources, 2 ups, 3 ups, things like that. So we're going to be, and so that is definitely what we're moving towards. Anyway, let's jump in. We're now going to change subjects to Apple Keynote. We wouldn't normally give Apple, we talk about Apple Keynote a lot, but we don't usually give it a whole second hour, except for the fact that they put in a new feature, and I think I might be able to show it here. They put in a new feature. I've got to change my which computer I'm controlling. That is fascinating. So I'm going to give you a little bit of an overview of it, and then we'll jump to it. So here is, so now I am talking to you in Keynote. So this is, and what's interesting about this, just to get the kind of the conversation started here, is this is just an object. It's an object like any other graphic inside of Keynote. So you basically are, it's got all the little snaps. If I go into my style here, I can do things like put it in a picture frame. So, you can drop it into a picture frame. I wouldn't normally use that one, but you can do things like, here's the little rounded corners. You can, if you wanted to give it a drop shadow for some reason, we can blur this a little bit more. Let's move the offset a little bit. So, but it's just treated like, and I don't have multiple inputs right now. Someone else here may may have that. But what I wanted to show here is that this is, and you can do things. One of the things that's really interesting is I could have, I could do something like this. And, if I add another, it's hard for me to see what I'm doing when I move this over here, but I should have done a mirror. That's what I meant to do. Oops. Anyway, so here you can see the live video here. So I have another one here. Now I have 2 live videos. Now, if I take this and I copy and paste it in here, and then here I go into my my animate. I want to add an effect and say I want to do a magic move from one to the other. Now, what I can do here is have this, if I go to the second frame, and let's say I want to make this one, whoops, that's kind of cool, but it's not exactly.
Alex, I've got one up if you want to show it.
And I'll hand it to you just a second. So all I was going to do is just do this here. And then if we go into the magic move and we preview it, no, it's hard to do when I set it up so quickly. But anyway, but the point is that all of the things that you would have inside of Keynote are available inside of the live video. So I've got a couple people here that have examples. So who was David? You were showing something there. So that's.
Yeah, I set this up for like a synagogue or a temple that was leading services. Maybe if you wanted to move from a side by side to a lower third.
Yeah. And so this is, it's not replacing something like OBS. You don't have a way to go. You don't have a way to do. Well, right now you don't have a way to do random. Jumping to different looks and everything else the way you'd have in a switcher, but your ability to do what David's showing is pretty profound. John, you've got a couple of things there. You're showing an example of the same thing.
Yeah, so this is just a video background. It's a little busy. I couldn't find anything plainer than this. And then I've got my Brio cam fed on one side, and I've got my built-in and my iMac Pro on the other side. And then one of the questions upcoming is, can you animate? Absolutely can animate these.
Yeah.
It's pretty fun. It's really interesting.
Yeah, it's pretty powerful tool. Go ahead, Chris. Were you going to show anything specific?
I was just going to show this is 2 separate sources. One's coming from the Brio directly, and then one is the output. The over the shoulder is the output of my Blackmagic. So I have all my other sources available.
Yeah, and so for people wanting to do really interesting presentations, and being able to jump, if I'm a teacher, if you're a salesperson, you're doing meetings, this is so much, you can do a lot, so you can imagine with Chris, for a cooking demo or something else, you could have a close-up and a wide, and you're cutting back and forth between them, especially if you know what you're going to do next. I'm going to talk a bunch of things, and I'm going to go to this thing. I will say, because it's in a presentation tool, what would be next for Keynote would be to have random access, and you may be able to do that with AppleScript, where you had something that was firing off, like jump to slide 12, jump to slide 8, that type of thing to create those transitions. So those are things that would be possible, in that structure. There are, now a lot of us are using inputs. One thing that we have found so far, and I'll take a look at this, but there's a lot of things that don't show up yet. So virtual cameras, I don't think we've seen any virtual cameras show up inside of it yet. We also haven't seen any the 3G mini recorder doesn't appear. So there's a bunch of things that don't appear yet, but the ATEMs do. That's what I'm going in from, or is the ATEM. So mine's actually one ATEM to another ATEM that's only taking that camera output and putting it in, and then switching it. I had a bunch of web presenters I was trying to set up for today, but I didn't quite get to that. But so the inputs, I think that one of the big things, the 2 big things that I think are missing right now with the new Keynote is, one is the inability to take virtual cameras, which I think will come, somewhere in the future. And the second is that I think Keynote needs to be able to generate a virtual camera. So Apple needs to be able to deliver Keynote as a virtual camera, because like I was able to show you what I'm doing because because I've got a switcher. So if you have a switcher, you can have one computer feeding into the other one and then run your event. That's fine. But for an average person, being able to just have their webcam and then go into Keynote, right now they have to screen share. And if they do screen share, that means that they're going to get lower frame rates. So now they should be able to optimize. One of the things we want to think about for Zoom is to optimize for video, which means it'll be lower resolution. So you just have to kind of think through what those look like. Let's go ahead and if anyone else has any other examples or comments as they started to play with it, let's look at that. But let's go ahead and let's start answering some of the questions.
Okay, a first one comes in from David Paskin in Miami, Florida. It says, what kind of audio-video, I think it means mismatch, might occur when screen sharing live video from Keynote into Zoom? Maybe synchronization issues.
Yeah, there's a little bit of a latency, obviously, in Keynote in the draw. It's pretty good. It's just not. It's like a frame or two. So you do have to think about that. If you're gonna switch back and forth in and out of Keynote, I think that you're gonna have an issue with. You would want to do everything in there, or your audio sync is going to be a little off. So you have to pay attention to the audio sync. I think in a lot of cases people don't think about it that much. So I don't know how big of a deal that'll be, but I think that once you get into a presentation, you'll want to stay in it. I think going in and out of a Keynote presentation, I think that's the advantage of Keynote, is that you could theoretically have those live feeds and be able to do that. Next question.
From panelist Noah Sargent in Fullerton, California, what is the maximum number of video layers?
I don't know if there is a stated maximum number of video layers. I don't. It's treated as an object. So the maximum number of inputs that you might have for it. So you might have a couple. I don't know how many. You're limited by I think you're more limited by your hardware inputs, than you are from anything else. And so you could theoretically start adding a lot of things if you had enough inputs.
There will be a day when your computer chokes.
Yeah. Well,
you've reached the maximum.
Yeah. I mean, I think that, but I don't think that there is any preconceived limitation. I think I had like 8 or 10 layers running on my little M1, and it was like, oh yeah, sure, no problem. So it's not, I haven't done a hard test of that yet, but it should be the computer limitation, that's the way Apple typically builds a lot of this stuff. And so I could also see, a Mac Pro, someone using a Mac Pro so they can do a crazy Keynote. There you go, Peter. Now you have a good reason for your Mac Pro. Let's do a Keynote with 20 live inputs. One of the things that I am trying to figure out the best way to do is to take, is how we're going to put. And we may even take, I don't want to tear apart the system. It's so well put together for Office Hours 2.0, but having a bunch of outputs go out of one computer and into the other, out of one Mac and into another Mac. So you could theoretically now grab, using Zoom ISO, you could grab 4 people out of per card. You could add 4 people out of it and put them into, theoretically, you could put 4 or 8 people into a Keynote, through Zoom. So you could take the Zoom ISOs out and then pass them all into Zoom. And make that work. So I think that you could build, a lot of what we talk about, especially when you have a lot of our events are not random. They're not. They are. This person's going to talk, and then this person's going to talk, and then this person's going to talk, and they've got slides and they've got things. And the thing to remember is the idea of being able to animate those slides between things is pretty interesting. Being able to jump to those is useful. Next question.
All right, this one comes in from Douglas Carmichael. I was not able to connect a virtual camera to Keynote, either Mimo Live or virtual camera nor NDI video. Would I need an ATEM Mini or web presenter to bring external live sources into Keynote?
Go ahead, David.
My findings are anything that can present itself to QuickTime. So I think that's core audio. Core video. Sorry. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Will work. So I have these old DV converters back there for analog stuff. I threw them in and it works. So
right.
I think that's the crux.
And I've got we had moved because of resolution and so on and so forth away from the web presenters, but I've got a bunch of web presenters sitting here, and I was like 2 inches away from getting them all hooked up today. The big thing you run into with at least the Mac Minis is running out of IO. That's been, so you have to kind of figure that out. in that process. But if you use, that's the advantage of going down to 720 in a webcam with the older web presenters, is you don't saturate the I/O at the same speed that you would with other things. Go ahead, Peter.
Well, unlike Zoom, where the DeckLink quad card is the bane of my existence, the HDMI quad card that gives me 50 options for each input, Keynote completely ignores it. It's back to exactly what David said, because QuickTime or the core video doesn't recognize those cards either.
Right. So it doesn't see the cards at all.
Doesn't see the cards at all. So it won't give me that options, because I was looking to see if I could capture multiple. I use that for multiple inputs just coming straight into the Mac Pro, and they're invisible.
Yeah.
I think the Blackmagic mini recorders will work as well.
I haven't been able to get them to work. So I have a mini recorder here, and I tried to hook it up, and it just didn't show up at all. Like it was. If you have it working, then let me know, and I'll go back to.
Might be
I'll go
one of
back
my
to
older Macs. Let me check it out.
Yeah, because I'll go back to the drawing board. But I have the mini 3G that I tried to plug into my Mac Mini, and it was like it just didn't even show up. But the older one, to your point, I have some older ones too. I might be able to grab onto those. Go ahead, Courtney.
I had one question. So if you create a slide that has live video mapped into an area of the screen, and then you come to that slide and that source of live video has disappeared, what kind of error? What is it?
It's blank. Just blank. Mm-hmm. Yeah, go ahead, Chris. I can't hear you, Chris.
Pretto just sent me a Keynote live feed to his display. And because his cameras are not available, I'm actually...
And he messed up my whole template.
Lucky. That was a mistake. So John, if you pop up your slide, does it show your live video in the broken version of your template? Yeah. Yes. There you go. So I'm actually... Oh, no, so stay on John there. So if I pick this up, there you go. And he pops there.
So can you change the input, Chris, to your...
More importantly, can I change the font he chose?
Well, that's...
And how are the two machines linked right now, you said?
So we're using Keynote Live, which is a feature that allows one person to drive somebody else's machine. So he's given me control over his machine. Now, I can't see his cameras on my feed, but he sees the result of it. So, and because it's here it is. So if I change this, I only have access to his inputs, not mine, because my Blackmagic doesn't show up there. So I'm remotely controlling his system.
And the thing here is that you can have
change these fonts.
You can have multi-tenancy. So now this is one of the other things that was added. You can have 3 or 4 people able to control the slide deck. Now, why would you want to do that? Well, mostly if you want to have 3 or 4 people presenting. So imagine, having, again, if we figure out a way to put 4 people into it, they could all be on Zoom. They could all be showing up in a live thing. They could be running their own slide deck, and it could be all animated, and then it could cut between them having a round table and then cutting to one of them, and then everything zooms over and the stuff comes up. And so you really, it is taking presentation. It's almost not a presentation tool anymore. It's like turned into a new category of video production.
Quick question though, just Chris, you're looking at the template and not the actual resulting slide. So I'm wondering if that's just a placeholder for you as a designer or TD to see that it's there. If you were to make changes and push that live, and we look at the live,
you're seeing it change live. If we
right.
But you're not. John,
machine.
Are you set to present? Are you in presentation mode right now, John?
No, editing mode.
Right. Once you go to presentation mode, you can't do anything. All you can do is go to the next slide. Yeah, that's where I'm interested in. I don't know the answer. I don't know how deep the hooks are for AppleScript, but theoretically, you could tie AppleScript to Osculator. So you could have OSC. You could probably get a system like where Isadora is controlling Keynote from, I don't know, whatever you want to control it on. So, but I just don't know how deep the AppleScript is, in that process. Go ahead, Stuart.
Yeah, with the inputs that are available, does it pick up like a browser source or an RTSP or RTMP source?
Well, some of the sources that it can pick up, and I haven't tried it with a YouTube source, but it does have. They've added a couple things there. Let me. There's a when you add media. Let's pull this back over here. I gotta hold on. I'm gonna do this in a more intelligent way. When you grab media, grabbing something from YouTube is now something that's actually available to you. So you can. There we go. So let's see. I've seen it and I just haven't done anything with it. But there's web video is one of the options. So you just enter a URL, and I don't know whether it would. I'll let someone else talk for a second while I try to figure this out. But what I'm looking at here is, so I said I want to add a web video to this, and so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go to YouTube.
I think what we're seeing here is one of the things that, a lot of times Apple is chastised for being slow to a party. And the reason they are is they don't want to show up with something that's incomplete. That being said, I think that there's clearly a lot more that this can have, like the virtual cam comments that we commented about. But it's super cool. I see somebody giving a slide presentation, not a screen demo, but a slide presentation.
So I just want to point out that this object is that is a live feed from YouTube. So that's and I'm not able to, here we go. Grabbing onto it is a little bit different. It doesn't, while it's playing, it won't move. So that's a little bit different there. And I can still, take it and look at the format. Let's see. No, I can't. Interesting. I can't do quite the same thing with it. But anyway, so I don't know what the title is there. Caption is below it. Anyway, but I actually am able to put this video into it. So this would be, I could be commenting, for instance, on a live stream, and have it pop up, from that as well.
And when you hit play, the other controls came up for the video, like the top title and then watch later,
there,
share. I wonder if those buttons also work. Yeah, volume control.
Yeah, no, that's all, because that's all part of it. It's just it's embedding. It's doing an embed operation. Okay. So it's just whatever. It's just the same embedding functionality. But that's a actual live stream from YouTube that is now put into it. So you could theoretically set that up. If you want to do a commentary about a live stream, for instance, you could put 3 or 4 people across the bottom. You could have, you could jump in and out of those things. You could do a lot of, it'd be interesting. Go ahead, Courtney.
If you have that live video paused, when you come to that slide, does it automatically start play, or can you set that as a...
Typically you can set that. I have to, let's see here. Usually, here's actions. Because the other thing is that, all of this stuff is treated like an object, right? So one of the other things here is like for this one, I could say, I want this to, dissolve in. I want this one to, let's say, I don't know what the anvil is, land, and I want this this one to this one says low video. Yeah, exactly. And so if we hit play, we'll see what happens here. So this one's here. That was me pushing forward. I can set that to automatic. There's me fading in. There's me landing. So again, because it's just being treated as an object with a texture map, it is. Now with this, I believe that I can, the action that I want to take, let's see here. Action. Usually with the movie, there is a automatically play on open. There we go. So now you can hit, now if I hit play, still didn't. I still had to click on it there. Well, I have to figure that out. Usually with QuickTime movies, you can hit it automatically play. But that's in the document. So that's something different.
Maybe
check in your build order.
That play button is part of the YouTube interface and not the computer interface, maybe.
Yeah. Because
if you check in your build order, you may have it set, Alex, to start on click.
Oh, yeah. There we go. Let's try it now. So let's hit play. Yep, that was it. So you see a little bit of the stuff from the thing, but that was all. To your point, you all I had to do there was set the build order to as David so astutely pointed out. So with that, you can just go to that frame, and it looks like Leo has gone crazy. He is. Oh, you've got a couple. You're bringing someone else in from Zoom, Leo, or are you bringing just Zoom in?
I've, as you said, this is the live YouTube back in from the show in. So and the rest of me.
Yeah.
The rest of me. But
yeah. Go ahead, Stuart.
I'm just curious as to whether you can pull in a feed from Video Ninja. So if you want, sir, in the panel chat, I will put a link to this phone.
Oh, that's really interesting. From a video feed, because yeah, that'd be really interesting.
And this is coming through the same network. So the link is in the panel chat if you want to grab it for a web link.
Yeah, go ahead, David.
One other thing you can do is if you tether an iOS device in, that does show up. So you could either bring in screen or potentially camera over a wired tethered connection in.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, again, when we think about like teachers or someone else like that, to being able to grab onto, taking their just any old phone, or taking their iPhone or whatever and just putting it up over top of whatever they're trying to show, and then being able to do that is pretty interesting. Go ahead, David.
Yeah, I tried the Video Ninja. It's saying non-valid URL.
Okay. So it may not
It
support
could be because
WebRTC.
multiple people were taking it at the same time.
No, it only allows YouTube or Vimeo links.
Right. But you could also imagine a future where it could support FaceTime. Like, so you could bring somebody in and have it just kind of pop in to that process. In fact, if you had it tethered, you might be able to get someone in over FaceTime that way as well. So, but being able to have these video objects, and again, what makes it interesting is the fact that it's a video object. I mean, it's a graphic object that has all the same effects and everything else, built into it. Now, will this run well on something less than a Mac Mini or an M1? I don't know. like I've only tested it on the M1 so far. I have a feeling that you won't be able to go very far back and have it run. Like it's doing a lot of graphics processing to do this. So I know it runs really well on my Mac Mini, but I don't know if it would run on something less than an M1 particularly well. Probably a Mac Pro is probably good. Maybe the last year of a MacBook Pro. And the new iMacs and stuff like that. But I think it would be only a year back or 2 years back before it would start to fall apart, because these are really aggressive effects. As someone who's done this for a long time, I can't believe they're doing it. Like it's a real crazy thing to put in and just treat it like anything else. Next question.
Okay, I think we may have touched on this already. Leo Mendel from Pinner UK. Can Keynote output as a virtual camera direct to Zoom, etc.?
Yeah, and I think that's what's missing for both in and out is the virtual cameras. Go ahead, Peter.
Short answer is no. The only way I'd be able to use is set it to play in window and then use something like Memo Live or something like that to capture the window, right? So play in window means you don't have to go full screen is the point, right?
Right. Oh, right. To capture it. Yeah. Play out the window, to get it out. Right. But
play out as window.
And then capture that window.
And then capture that window, and then you're fine. But it's not, it is missing the obvious, which is send it to a virtual camera.
Yeah. And you could do the play in window. The main thing is that, and we should probably test it. I think we can actually test this relatively quickly.
I just tried it. I just tried the play in window with a live video.
And are you getting a lower frame rate?
Oh, I didn't check the frame rate.
Yeah, so that would be the thing that would be the thing about the play in window, but we can definitely test that as well. So if I switch over to this and I go in here and I go Let's see.
I can confirm that a tethered FaceTime feed does not show up as a source in Keynote as a live video source.
Right.
And I'm doing this on a nearly 4-year-old computer.
Let's see here. So now I am going to try to share. Let's see. I may hit. Someone may need to make me a co-host. Let's see here. Stuart, are you able to make me? Oh, there we go. So
I was on it. I was a little distracted because Marty Atlas was able to pick up the phone in his keynote. Hoping that perhaps we can swap over to Leo and.
Yeah, go ahead, Leo. We can stop this for a second because it's not working. Go ahead.
That you're seeing there, tethered. That is my ATEM Mini. That one is my camera on my phone, on my Mac, and I am playing that all in a window along with the video of this show, and everything is getting slower and slower and slower.
Right. And does it look slow on your side too?
Some bits do. Funny enough, if I clap, you can see.
Yeah. And what is and what computer are you on?
This is an i9 2019 MacBook Pro.
Yeah. So it's probably needs
32 gig of RAM.
Yeah.
So it's only
Yeah, you're starting to push it. Yeah, go ahead, David.
Just wondering with the live video stream, if anybody has access to an RTSP feed, like a security camera that you can pump in there. That would be an interesting thing to check out.
It's only allowing video feeds coming from YouTube or Vimeo URLs.
And that's probably
allow anything else.
Yeah, they're probably baby steps.
Then how did Marty grab the Video Ninja feed?
I think he's on the phone and then sharing the phone. Like he's sharing
you can see my
phone.
My phone here, and it's just showing the screen of the phone. So that's just got Larix open as a camera, but I could put anything I like on that,
right?
And you could be playing it. So that's it. That is a way of doing it, bringing anything in via.
Is tether your phone. Your phone could be tethered to an external input and then brought in, right? And that could probably be either, Larix or face anything that can go point to point would be capable of doing that. It's interesting. Be interesting to see what it is, what the frame rate looks like when you do that. But theoretically, could work very well. Let's go to the next question.
Okay, coming in from Nathan GS in Singapore. What would be the real world usage, or what would the real world usage? What do
we think of the real world?
How would you use this in the real world?
Yeah, go ahead, David.
I'm working primarily with smaller synagogues, temples, and they don't have, not only do they not have the inclination to, they don't have the bandwidth to deal with production design software. So you throw this into Keynote, you have them share their screen, and then they don't disappear when they're presenting into a tiny little corner, and they can really create some dynamic presentations.
Yeah, go ahead, Leo.
So the thing that's interesting on this is because both David and I are Ecamm users, and Ecamm is effectively doing a hell of a lot of this already, and it's designed to do it. And in fact, this is like stepping a step backwards, but that's not a problem to me. You have to go forward and try these things and it will find its market and it will find its need. I think, as you've said already, Alex, the key things that are missing from this is the virtual cameras. But if you think about where Keynote really started, which is a presentation tool for people in the room, and then being able to bring in, just to say, and the next slide, we are going to bring in somebody remote or something just there or something like that. And you're doing away with this mess where you've got to bring in a Zoom call or something just for one person for one part of a presentation. It could be very powerful.
Well, also remember that you're in a one of the big problems we've had for a long time is the is the idea of being able to, I want to show you something, then I want to go back to my presentation. I want to show you something, I want to go back to my presentation. Now you're in a situation where even if you're in a physical room, I could have a webcam sitting on top of something that's really close up that I'm looking at, and I can cut to that in my presentation with, here are the things you're trying to look for, and I can have all this stuff, and then I could cut back to myself. And again, we're controlling not only, I mean, we're thinking about it from a, how do you put it into Zoom, but a lot of people could be looking at, how do I put it on a big screen, that the whole classroom can see? And more importantly, how do I do that when you think about a hybrid, classroom? The teacher now can put that into there. The online students can see a lot of the same presentation. You're not trying to figure out how to get cameras to point at the screen, or how to, there's a whole bunch of things that you don't have to do, but you can still see the teacher, so it's really interesting. You were going to say something else, Leo?
Yeah, I just think nine copies of me on one screen at once is probably a new record. I haven't seen 9 of me at once, so there you go.
Go ahead, David.
Yeah, I just want to say one of the things that I'd love to see in the future is broadening what you can bring in. So I'd love to be able to bring in a web page or something like that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Go ahead, Courtney.
Yeah, the thing you described for projecting onto a screen would be great for product demos at trade shows and so on, where you could have a live image manipulating whatever it is and going through different screens live as you have a slide up of features, et cetera, on the screen. That'd be very useful.
Yeah, and one of the things that is in there that I haven't played with very much, where the images, is that it lets you can tie your camera right to right to Keynote, where you can take a picture, and immediately throw it in there. So there's a lot of I don't think you can do it during the presentation, but yeah, to what you were just saying, being able to interactively have this conversation and have you in it, and possibly other inputs and lots of other bits and pieces, and have it appear and disappear. I don't need to be in it right now. I want to be in it. I want to be a small window. I want to be a big window. All those things can be done. And it's not a replacement for OBS. It's not a replacement for Ecamm. It's not a replacement for any of those things. For those of us who already use those things, we're probably not the target audience. But for an average teacher or salesperson or person that's doing this stuff, it's pretty capable. Next question. And it's free. Remember, it doesn't cost anything.
Oh, yeah, there's that. This comes in from Jason Robertshaw in Sarasota, Florida. Can you change the primary camera on live video on the fly using iOS Keynote on an iPad? Is it possible to choose the back camera on one slide and the front camera on another?
I have not tested that. I don't know if I know the answer. It seems like it would be that'd be a really interesting feature. I don't know the answer. Really good question, though. Next question.
Okay, another one from Jason Robertshaw in Sarasota. Do you think they will add chroma key or virtual backgrounds to live video?
Go ahead, David.
God, I hope not.
I mean, the one thing that I would say about that is, with the 422 processing that Apple's now allowing through it, they could theoretically do some pretty high quality green screens, much higher than what we're seeing with the typical virtual background. If you did that, you could theoretically do some pretty useful ones. You could theoretically, because now the engine is it's recording Apple ProRes. I mean, maybe in a version or two down the road, but it would be really interesting. Next question.
Okay, this might be related. It's from Tim Holman, San Lorenzo, California. Can you use the instant alpha features to remove the background from your video source?
I don't think that's available. Let me just make sure here. But I don't think.
I don't see it in there, Alex.
Yeah, I don't think that tool is there. You have a lot of tools around how you frame it in its position, but actually interacting with the video, which I think would be much more load on the CPU, doesn't seem to be available. Next question.
Okay, coming in from Tumo Kaluma in Finland. So if Keynote supports browser sources, can you add SPXGC graphics over a video?
It does look like it doesn't support browsers as much as it supports Vimeo and YouTube, at least for now. So I think it would be hard to get that live in there, but but I like where you're thinking. So that's what, I mean, a lot of us will immediately want to, turn this into an F1 car, but it's just a really nice car. It's no longer a horse. It's a car. It's a car, but it's not a race car yet. But I do think it's a game changer. Next question.
Sorry, missed the click. Coming from Roscoe Jones in Disneyland. Oh boy. Assuming Apple has been sitting on this capability for a few years, are they releasing it now due to the M1 capabilities or because COVID-19 has been sending everyone's presentation to online video platforms?
I don't know if it's been sitting around. I mean, man, I can't even, I think that Apple, it really feels like Apple did a rare thing, which is they actually responded to something that was happening, so relatively quickly into the program, we got the ability to present to a window rather than present to a screen. And that I really felt like was a response, like, how do we make this easier to use for people doing Zoom events, and that type of thing. I think that this is something, I think in 18 months, Apple could do it. It's taking core technologies that they already know how to do and putting them in. It's not as big of a lift. It probably took a lot of thinking. But I think that this is more of a response to COVID. That's my guess. I have no information. But my guess is that this is not something that they had, I don't think they were sitting on it for a long time. Like it is so out of the blue. I didn't even think it would, it just didn't even occur to me that it was possible or that you would even, I never ever thought about doing it. To be honest, I don't get surprised very often. And this was usually you're waiting for technologies for 5 or 10 years because you know what's going to happen. You just can't, like we know that USDZ will be everywhere. We just don't know when, but you can just see that trajectory going down the path. And by the way, when I keep talking about USDZ, imagine a time when you have the live video and the USDZ, available to you in a presentation and be useful. Next question.
Coming from Morgan Price in Victoria, British Columbia. Has anyone tried pulling in a video Ninja source into Keynote yet?
And we did, and it didn't work. So we've gone down that path. Next question.
Coming in from Brody Hefner in New York City. What are the Mac iOS system requirements for the use of the new Keynote embedded video features?
I believe it's Big Sur. Big Sur is the minimum requirement to run it. So. And I would guess that it won't run very well with less than, in any computer made more than 2 years ago. Like this is an aggressive feature. Go ahead, Chris.
I'm going to guess that a lot of RAM helps. My computer, like I said, my computer is about 4 years old, but it has like all the RAM. So
right. So that helps too.
It's got all the RAM. Yeah.
Maybe a couple high performance computers, but the average computer, I bet you wouldn't be able to keep up with it for very long. So that'd be the one thing. I do think that you could end up with people with Mac Pros, using them so they could push the envelope of what they can do in Keynote now. It's very interesting. Next question.
Coming in from Craig McFarlane in Boston. The add sketch from iPad seems to be handy as telestration. Anyone able to do this live?
Well, I know in the iPad version, you can draw on top of your Keynote slide. I haven't tried to do it on top of a live video from the Keynote, but I think you can. So when you think about what that would look like is if you're doing a presentation, you could theoretically have a live output I think that you'll have to see if that works. Could be really interesting. But I don't know that for sure. But I think that you'd be able to, on an iPad, be able to annotate the live video in a presentation.
Alex, in the chat, Ken has just noted that, yes, that does work.
So you can now telestrate the live video, which is the only thing that's missing there is for the iPad to actually, I wonder if you could, anyway, being able to, I just wonder if you could use the iPad, you could somehow have the iPad connected to the computer and then be able to do the telestration over top of it. I'd have to play with it a little bit, but anyway, yeah, but we're very close to a telestration solution even now. So why would you do that? Well, what if you were, presenting from your iPad and an object, again, showing in class, and then you're able to circle things like look at this and look at that. And the idea of that being right in your iPad is compelling. Next question.
From Morgan Price in Victoria, British Columbia, has anyone tried this in FaceTime? Are there special features that work or are smoother in FaceTime versus Zoom or Teams, etc.?
Haven't tried it in FaceTime. Theoretically, it could work, maybe. I have to admit, I use FaceTime every once in a while to talk to people one-on-one. I haven't really used it in that format for a long time, or try to do anything special with it because it doesn't do very many things special well. So it's one of the things that I don't think Apple has quite figured out. Next question.
Another one from Morgan Price in Victoria, BC. I'm enjoying the group exploration of this feature. Is this what after hours is like?
21 hours a day. Yeah, absolutely. Except it's even slower and more, like this is what after hours is all like. Go ahead, David.
Yes.
Yeah. This is probably the most after hours second hour we've ever had. Like this is still after hours light, because we can sit there and talk about something like this for hours. Like we'll sit there for an hour or 2 or 3 working through some problem and playing with it. And we're probably, to your point, we started putting things in. So like today and tomorrow at noon, Andy Carluccio and I are going to we're going to just hang out and talk about Isadora. And play with it and kind of learn it together. So that's the beginning of these kind of more of these labs. We're probably going to do labs related to Keynote because of this. You kind of like figure it out. I mean, we won't do a ton of them, but we'll do a couple labs in the next couple of weeks. It is actually going to happen that after Tuesday of this coming week, I have a much wider space. So a lot of things are going to happen really quickly because I've got a little bit of room to work. So anyway, so we'll be doing a lot as we go into next week. Next question.
From Douglas Carmichael, how do you import a YouTube stream into Keynote, and can you import other streams from other services?
Go ahead, David.
Sure. So take a look at my screen here. You go up to Media, click on Web Video, and then you just pop in the URL that you want, and then it comes in automatically.
Yeah. Nifty. Next question. Oh, sorry, David, go ahead.
Yeah, I think to Leo's point, and it'll only support YouTube and Vimeo at present.
Yeah,
so.
yeah, absolutely. Next question.
Coming in from Stefan Fischer in Würzburg, Germany. It seems that one could connect via an Apple TV and then into the presentation. Is that possible?
It should be.
That's one of the live videos. Sorry.
It's one of the live inputs. One of the live things that are available to you is the Apple TV. Yeah, it's one of the things you can choose. So yeah, you could do it, and that would give you another kind of Larynx opportunity as well, because you can do it Larynx to the Apple TV, I believe. So you could or maybe even NDI. The NDI tool in the Apple TV could be your NDI solution to get in. Next, that's something we'll have to kind of figure out. Next question.
From Chris Widener, I'm only seeing the front, not the rear camera on Keynote on iPad M1. Is this what everyone else is seeing?
I don't know if I haven't tried it yet. So you're out there in front telling us the way it is. It's quite possible that it would only be. Well, it's weird that it would only be front, because you'd want to have the rear one. Like you'd want to have the one that can see something, I would think. Maybe Apple hasn't thought through that. So it'd be interesting to see. It sounds like a feature request. Next question.
From Joseph in San Diego, have you used Prezi Video? It seems to be a more polished version of Apple's Keynote with live video. It supports Zoom natively.
Go ahead, David.
Yeah, I've used Prezi Video. I'm not sure I'd say it's more polished. It does come into Zoom as a virtual camera. My uses with it are a lot of, keying you out and putting you over your slides, which I don't really like doing, but it's a good solution for some people.
I think one of the big advantages for Keynote is there's just a lot of people that already know how to use it. so it's that always becomes the thing, is that, wow, you've got millions and millions of people that already know how to turn it on. And then you're just giving them the tool, a new tool that they can work with, and they don't have to relearn something. So next question.
Looks like the last question.
I think we got a couple more
in the queue. Okay.
Oh, those are from first hour. Yeah, but I think that they might be Keynote. Anyway, go ahead.
Well, this is kind of related. I think it just being mistagged. Gus Libby in Satellite Beach, Florida. Can you put a transparent object over your video object and then draw text in the transparent object?
I do believe that is possible. I would have to. I don't know if anyone has a version of that, but there shouldn't be any reason why it's not. I don't know if you draw text, or I don't know if you can draw over the top of it live, but you can. I think. Well, we've already seen. If you look at what I was showing here, if I cut to this is an object. You have an object over top of it. Let me get better at this. So if I grab this object, for instance, let's see if I arrange it. I guess I don't have. In this case, I don't have a. Let's try taking a shape. It doesn't seem like it has a lot with the web video, but let's take this shape here. We'll put it over here, and we'll go into its, let's see, style, opacity. There it is. So it's just another layer on top. So it's actually going over both the live videos. So you can see it is transparent. And I'm sure that anything else works over top of it as well. So yeah, absolutely. Next question.
Okay, coming in from Kyle Holliday in Dallas. When creating presentations in Keynote, how should they be laid out? That's a pretty vague question.
Well, I mean, I think that there's a lot of basic skills that I would say. You know, the basics are 20 words and 20 points. We always say that, like, just shouldn't be anything more than 20. It shouldn't be any smaller. Your text shouldn't be any smaller than 20 points, and you shouldn't have more than 20 words on a slide. For me, unless I'm making some point where I'm trying to show you a lot of text for some reason, I try to keep the amount of text I put on a slide very, very low. If I'm going to make multiple points, I make multiple slides. You know, I don't use the, the little points that appear, little, whatever they call them with the little dots on them. I don't do that very often.
Bullets.
Sorry? Bullets. Yeah, I don't do. I don't even know what they're called anymore because I don't use them.
I did get FaceTime tethered.
Look at that.
From Pretto. It's my whole screen. I don't get to no clean output, and it has that. Oh wait, hold on. If I deselect, okay, so that icon went away.
And you can crop it.
Yeah, I could. Crop
so with a live video, you can. It is set. The mask right now is 16:9, but if you change it to custom,
boop, boop.
You can crop things out. So, which is kind of nifty as well.
It really tries to keep my icon in there, though. Watch this as I crop up. As I crop up, it's like, oh, I'm pushing it up. I'm pushing it up. I'm pushing it up.
I don't realize that's not a feature. What happens if you turn it? What if you turn it to the side? Will it? I don't know what it'll do with it.
So when I turn it, it doesn't do it. I actually have to go and change it to device portrait. Device landscape. Now John would have to turn his camera to play along, and maybe not turn it upside down. And then if I hit custom,
it's funny that they kept it upside down.
There we go.
Yeah.
Is there a setting for automatically center video? Because it seemed when you were moving the crop up from the bottom, it was trying to keep the video centered, and that's why it was.
For some reason, it was trying to keep that. It's interesting that it's still got the rounded corners from FaceTime, which is annoying.
It does. Custom again.
Anyway, but that's pretty interesting that you can.
There we go.
That you can do that. Yeah, that's really cool. Next question.
Good.
The leftover from the first hour, but when I look at most of the video tutorials on the Mobile Learn website, they are not in a conventional.
Let's not jump to that one. We'll push that one back to it. Yeah.
All right. Moving on to Douglas Carmichael. Could you conceivably use Bourne's MIDI translator, MIDI note to keystroke translation, to control Keynote from a remote controller, or could you address Keynote via the network?
Go ahead, David.
I guess you could, but I don't know what the practical thing, unless you're trying to busk a Keynote presentation. There's things like Internet Clicker or the Vicrio keystroke listener.
And now you can have multiple people controlling it, which I imagine you can still use the keystrokes, which means you could probably still use a clicker if you wanted to, connected to your home computer, and it should work on the remote side as well. I do think that we'd have to do some research on the Apple script, possibilities, because could you jump to specific slides would be really interesting, because then you could jump to different looks, and then you're kind of again, we're taking it and it's like one of those, we're hot rodding Keynote at that point.
And I think to Douglas's question, that would be where something like Bohm's MIDI translator, where you could lay it out over 88 keys and just jam on the slides.
Yeah. Next question.
Let's just in from the field. Stefan Fischer in Würzburg, Germany says, just tested iPhone via AirMix Solo via cable to QuickTime Player into Keynote. Works fine.
Well, look at that. Yeah. So, and I think that we're just at the very beginning. This is no one's ever done this before. So we're kind of figuring it out. Next question.
So far, the last one in the queue from Chris Wiedner in Lafayette, Indiana. Keynote Live doesn't support the live video. It says Keynote Live doesn't support the live video. What would it change if it did?
I'm not sure what that means, because it does support live video. I'm not. Yeah, you might have to write that again, Chris. Next question.
I think that's all.
Oh, we've got a couple more.
Oh, I didn't see them. They were hiding.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Just push them through to on.
Yep.
Okay, sorry. From Noah Sargent Fullerton. When using live Keynote and you're in presenter mode, does it lock the remote person from adjusting the presentation?
I don't know that for sure, but I would guess that I'm almost certain that it will. I mean, generally you can't, once something's in presentation mode in Keynote, it locks the functionality. So it doesn't allow you to do anything to it for obvious reasons, although it would be nice. But again, I don't know whether jumping from one slide to another would be allowed, which might be possible. Because I know that you can add, I believe, maybe I haven't done it for a long time, but I think that you can add like things in your Keynote that will let you jump to things. Next question.
Coming in from Noah Sargent in Fullerton. Can you record a presentation and play it out as a video?
Yeah, go ahead, Noah. You're throwing the ball to yourself.
I am, because at first I wasn't sure if it was possible, and then I started experimenting in this workshop, and I was able to figure out a way to do it. Oh, it's totally going to throw my live video off, but that's okay. So it's actually hidden under the play button. So play, record slideshow, and it's going to go into presenter mode. So I'm not sure. Okay, cool. So hopefully you still see my screen. So you have to actually then press record at the bottom. It's going to give you the count in. So now this is going to be the live presentation that we're recording. I do have two screens. So on my second screen, you'll see the full screen presentation versus what you see on my prompter right now, which is the the preview next slide. So, but yeah, so you can switch and do what you need. Obviously, you're getting a little bit of a meter in the bottom left-hand corner, and then you can hit stop recording, and then you can actually play back that slideshow within here, and it shows you slide 1, slide 2, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
And then to get this out of Keynote, you go to File, Export to Movie, and then you can set settings here. A default was 720. I did a custom, and I could actually put in resolution, a resolution of 4K. You could set the frames per second and the codec. So that's pretty powerful. You can even go out to ProRes 422, 444 if you really wanted to. So yeah,
the 444 will save the alpha channel.
That's cool. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you're over top of a transparency, it will actually be transparent.
And Alex, you had mentioned jumping between slides. If you're in dual screen presenter mode, you can, at the keypad, just type in the slide number you want to go to, hit the enter key, and it jumps directly to it.
So you'd be able to definitely like tie that in, so that you could jump to a different look, if you wanted to. So you could theoretically, if that works well, really create an edit. You're jumping from one look to another, like a full screen to this, full screen to that. Especially if they're keystrokes, you can map those to lots of things, like your Stream Deck.
Do you see my slide now?
Yep.
Okay, so that's slide 98, I believe, and that's 97.
Yeah.
99, 98.
Yeah. So you could literally be cutting a show. Inside of Keynote by just jumping to the different slides that have.
There might be easier tools, but this one is quite affordable.
It's very affordable, and there's things that it can do that would be hard to do. The big thing with Keynote, and the reason that I come back to it, and the reason I think it's probably one of the most important apps that exists, is because it's so easy to use and it just looks good and you can just throw it together and it's free and it comes with it, every Mac and it for people who don't know how to do that, like I build presentations in Slides, PowerPoint, and Keynote. Maybe not Slides and PowerPoint, not as much anymore, but I used to do it on a daily basis. I'd probably be in one of those, and that's why I'm such a big fan of Keynote because I spent so much time in the other ones, and they're painful, and they're not thinking through like the ease of use and the kerning and the anti-aliasing and the all the little things that kind of give it that last little bit of look to it. Next question.
Okay, maybe this one's the last one. From Chris Widener, he's just reporting back, I guess. The web-based Keynote Live through iCloud doesn't see the live camera.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, go ahead, David.
I'm wondering if the same thing we saw with John and Chris, if that's a firewalling issue, something to that effect.
Right.
Just throwing that out there.
Yeah. Next question.
Came in under the wire from Stuart Fairweather, some guy in Melbourne, Australia, says, is Keynote the OBS killer for Apple?
I don't know if it's an OBS killer. I think that it is I think it solves a bunch of problems for people who are not necessarily OBS, users. Go ahead, Leo.
I think Ecamm is the OBS killer for Mac, and use that first. It does everything that OBS does, but smoother, less crashy, and built for Mac from the ground up. One day, I think Ecamm will become an Apple product.
Yeah, go ahead, David.
Big second on Ecamm, and until Keynote has virtual camera out, it can't replace any of these.
Yeah, and I don't think it's designed to. I think that whether it's Ecamm or Mimo Live, or those are the two big Mac ones in my opinion. And there's tons of features that both of them have that Keynote doesn't have. But I do think that the fact that it's free, is going to it's free and it does just let you tie. There's so many people that are trying to figure out how to get their Keynote into Ecamm or into Mimo Live or into whatever they're doing, and now they don't have to figure that out. Like the big thing here is that I already know how to use this thing, and now I have a new object that doesn't act any differently than any of my other objects, and I can just throw it in there, and now I have this feature that I can kind of push through. That is a huge utility. It's not, and that is, and so I don't think to your point, I don't think it replaces it. But I do think that you'll end up with, millions of users that are using it. I also think, as we think about business for ourselves, is that I bet you that if someone started building lots of templates that had to do with broadcast, super sources and things that you could do that were built for Keynote, I bet you that'd be a really good business right about now. So, and some of these things come and go, like there'll be a big push, but as people get their head around what this does, there'll be suddenly a whole bunch of people that are like, well, I don't know how to design a show. And so building a bunch of things that look like shows that people can put it, that have two, like imagine a template that has 2-ups and 4-ups and singles and so on, and little windows for where you're going to put your text with you to the side. And same thing that you showed earlier, David, for House of Worship, you could have a whole bunch of different looks, and setups and everything else. And those all exist for other things. But now there's this new market called the Keynote market that will be interested in that new thing, And none of the stuff that's been out there so far will be compatible. So even if you just looked at it and did something that was similar, I would never do the same thing, but take, you could be inspired by a lot of different things and then build a whole bunch of templates for people, and have the same, but there's a big business there for the next year, in my opinion, maybe the next 6 months, next 6 months to a year, there's a big business. And again, I think that we're at the very beginning. So anyway, that was fun. Yeah, and for those of you watching too, is this what after hours? This is what after hours like 21 hours a day. We're just sitting there. I mean, sometimes we're just talking, but there's probably 2 or 3 times a day at least you get this kind of, well, let's figure this out. And I just felt like this was such an important update that it was worth a second hour for us to do. And we will. So we are doing a lab on Keynote a week from this Saturday. So a week from Saturday, the educators didn't want to do it this week because it's Columbus Day on Monday and educators are taking time off and everything else. But so a week from Saturday, we're going to spend the second hour just fiddling. So this is just the beginning of, this is the first second hour. The second hour is going to be just for educators. So it will be less of a general discussion about Keynote and more of how to use these new tools inside of teaching classes or teaching things. And so that'll happen again a week from tomorrow. So there you go. Or not tomorrow, a week from Saturday. so anyway, so stay tuned. Tomorrow again, we're going to be talking about lots. You're going to want to jump into this one. I mean, Charles is usually very busy. It's hard to get a hold of Charles. So it took us weeks to get this scheduled. So I'd highly recommend it. It's pretty breakthrough, and you'll just learn a lot about color correction from Charles. And so anyway, Charles is going to be here tomorrow. Remember that both at noon Pacific Standard Time, both today and tomorrow, Andy and I will be hanging out inside of Isadora in the after hours, just talking about to really like startup, just today especially, we'll just be like, we'll just connect some nodes and start doing some things and kind of playing with that process. So if you've been thinking about it, remember that Isadora is free until you start to save. So you can just open it up and play with it with us. So anyway, we got that today, and there's going to be a lot more labs coming. Probably within the next week or two, there'll probably be a lab a day on something. So I'm just letting you know, if you're interested in doing some labs or kind of figuring some labs out, let me know in Discord. All right. Now we're going to jump into after hours. Thanks so much to the panelists and the producers. Another great day in 560 some in a row. Amazing. You guys are